The clatter of plates echoed in the diner. Ben told me you were always a little, well, unstable, Mitch Cooper said, his voice slicing through the hum. My face burned. He pushed the divorce papers across the table, his smile thin and cold. He asked me to deliver these. Less messy that way. My hands trembled, my world exposed. The muted pre-dawn light filtered through the blinds of our suburban bedroom. I woke beside Ben Thomas, the familiar weight of his arm draped across my waist. We had been married for 15 years. The digital clock on his nightstand glowed 5:47 a.m., a number I knew by heart. He shifted, a soft snore escaping, and I gently eased myself from beneath the covers. The old floorboards creaked under my bare feet, a sound I had learned to navigate in the dark. Downstairs, the kitchen already hummed with the promise of a new day. I started the coffee maker, the gurgle and hiss a comforting soundtrack to my routine. Owen, 11, and Lily, 9, would be down soon, ready for their cereal. Ben would follow, already dressed, his briefcase waiting by the door. He was 39, solid and dependable, a man who always paid the bills on time and fixed leaky faucets without complaint. Sometimes I'd look at him, at his kind, tired eyes, and think of all the women who hadn't found what I had. A real jackpot, I'd tell myself. Yet a quiet hum of restlessness vibrated beneath the surface of my good life. It wasn't unhappiness, exactly. More a subtle, persistent ache. The days bled into each other, a predictable rhythm of school runs, grocery lists, and dinner preparations. It felt like living inside a carefully constructed, perfectly maintained box. A gilded cage, maybe, if I were being dramatic. Ben came into the kitchen, his tie already knotted, the scent of his aftershave cutting through the smell of coffee. Owen and Lily clattered down the stairs, their morning chatter filling the space. Ben began making lunches, the precise movements of spreading peanut butter and slicing apples. "Earth to Clara May," he said, his voice pulling me from my thoughts. I had been staring out the window, watching a robin peck at the dewy lawn. "You okay?" "Just thinking," I mumbled, offering a small smile that didn't quite reach my eyes. I picked up my phone, scrolling through local news headlines I didn't care about. He zipped up Lily's lunchbox. "I've got that late meeting tonight. There's a casserole in the freezer. Just pop it in the oven around 6. His voice was calm, steady, just like everything else about him. He leaned in, kissing the top of my head. "Love you, hun." A pang of guilt pricked at me. I looked up, meeting his gaze. "Love you too," I said, the words a little softer than I intended. He squeezed my shoulder, grabbed his briefcase, and was out the door. The house grew quiet again, the only sounds the clinking of Owen and Lily's spoons in their bowls. I sighed, a breath that felt too big for my chest. Another day, another Tuesday. The sameness of it all settled over me like a heavy quilt. Then a large moving truck, emblazoned with a local company's logo, rumbled down our quiet street. It pulled up to the old Miller place, directly across from us. New neighbors. I watched from the window as the truck eased into the driveway. A sleek black car, something expensive, followed close behind. A man stepped out. He was tall, lean, with dark hair that fell just so over a chiseled forehead. He wore a simple white t-shirt and jeans, but he looked like he belonged on a movie screen. My breath caught in my throat. "Don't be ridiculous, Clara May," I scolded myself, feeling a blush creep up my neck. He glanced up, his eyes, even from that distance, seeming to meet mine. I ducked away from the window, mortified, the curtain falling back into place. My heart thumped a quick, irregular rhythm. Minutes later, the doorbell rang. I smoothed my sweater, walked to the door, and opened it. He stood there, impossibly handsome, up close. His eyes were a startling shade of blue. "Hi," he said, a faint smile playing on his lips. "Mitch Cooper. I just moved in across the street. Would you happen to have any sugar I could borrow?" I felt a charge in the air, a peculiar warmth spreading through me. "Oh, sure," I heard myself say, perhaps a bit too eagerly. "Come on in." I stepped aside, holding the door open. He walked past me, the subtle scent of something clean and masculine following him. "Thanks," he said, surveying my kitchen. "It's a little crazy over there right now. Not really the settling down type, but I figured I ought to at least start with coffee. He turned, his eyes meeting mine again, and a little zing went through me, sharp and undeniable. Over the next few weeks, Mitch Cooper became a fixture on our quiet street. He waved to Mr. Henderson while bringing in his mail, helped Mrs. Rodriguez carry her groceries, and even joined in on the impromptu frisbee game the kids started in the park. He was charming, easygoing, and it seemed universally liked. Women from around the block started dropping off casseroles and welcome to the neighborhood pies. I watched from my kitchen window, a knot forming in my stomach. One Tuesday, I baked a batch of chocolate chip cookies. The aroma filled my house, a familiar comfort. But this time, the purpose felt different. I spent an extra 10 minutes in front of the bathroom mirror, applying a touch more eyeliner, a brighter shade of lipstick. I chose a sundress, one I hadn't worn since last summer, telling myself the weather was simply perfect for it. The thin fabric felt light against my skin. I walked across the street, the plate of warm cookies wrapped in foil. My palm felt a little damp. Mitch opened the door before I could even ring the bell, as if he'd been expecting someone. His eyes, those striking blue eyes, lingered on me for a moment. "Clara May," he said, a genuine smile spreading across his face. What a nice surprise. He stepped aside, inviting me in. His house was sparsely furnished, sleek and modern, a stark contrast to the comfortable, slightly cluttered warmth of my own home. Everything seemed to gleam. "I just wanted to welcome you properly," I said, a little too quickly, holding out the cookies. The words felt thin, even to me. He took the plate, his fingers brushing mine. "These look amazing. You shouldn't have." He grinned, a flash of white teeth. "The hospitality around here has been amazing, especially from certain neighbors." His gaze held mine, just a beat longer than strictly necessary. I felt a blush creep up my neck. Was I imagining the flirtatious edge in his voice? He certainly wouldn't be interested in a 37-year-old married mom with 2 kids in a minivan. That thought was a cold splash of water. We talked for a while. He told me about his finance job downtown, the long hours, the occasional travel. I found myself talking about my graphic design work, the clients I had, the challenges. I hadn't realized how much I missed talking about my career, about something beyond carpools and school projects. I laughed, a genuine, unrestrained sound that surprised me. It felt good, light. "Well, hey," I said, finally glancing at the clock on his minimalist wall. "I should probably get going. The kids will be home soon." The words felt heavy on my tongue. "Hey," he said, walking me to the door. "We should grab coffee sometime. For some proper neighborhood gossip." He leaned against the door frame, his posture relaxed, inviting. My heart gave a little jump. "I'd like that," I heard myself say, the words tumbling out a little too fast. I walked back across the street, the empty cookie plate feeling lighter than it should. I tried to tamp down the giddy feeling, the odd lightness in my chest. "It's just a new friend," I told myself. "A friendly neighbor, nothing more." But the next morning, I found myself timing my usual morning jog to coincide with the sound of his car pulling out of his driveway. A few days later, I was out puttering in the garden, watering the petunias, when he walked by on his way to his mailbox. Casual chats, witty banter about the local high school football team or the best place to get a decent sandwich. Each interaction left me feeling energized, desirable in a way I hadn't in years. My reflection in the mirror seemed a little brighter, my steps a little lighter. I convinced myself it was harmless. Just a little flirtation to spice up my routine life. A little something to look forward to. It wasn't hurting anyone. Ben was busy, absorbed in his work, and the kids had their own busy lives. This was just for me. A small, secret pleasure. The neighborhood was buzzing with plans for Brenda Allen's 40th birthday barbecue, scheduled for the upcoming Saturday. Everyone would be there, and the scent of grilled burgers and cheap beer hung heavy in Brenda Allen's backyard. Colorful balloons bobbed around the patio, and a playlist of classic rock hummed from hidden speakers. I chatted with Sarah from 2 houses down about summer camp options for our kids, a plastic cup of lukewarm Chardonnay in my hand. Then I saw him. Mitch Cooper, devastating in dark jeans and a fitted polo shirt, walked through the gate. My heart did a little flip, a sensation I hadn't felt since my early 20s. He scanned the crowd, his gaze cutting through the familiar faces. And then, for a fraction of a second, it landed on me. A small smile touched his lips before he started to work the room, greeting people, shaking hands. He made his way over to our small cluster of women. "Ladies, hope I'm not interrupting," he said, his voice smooth, a practiced charm in his tone. "Not at all," I said a little too quickly. "We were just discussing the PTA bake sale." My voice sounded tighter than I intended. He chuckled, a low, pleasant sound. "Sounds like thrilling conversation. Mind if I steal Clara May away for something a little more interesting?" His eyes twinkled. Before anyone could respond, he took my arm, a light touch that still sent a jolt through me, and guided me away from the group. We moved towards a quieter corner of the patio, near the hedge where a cooler sat. He handed me a fresh margarita, condensation beating on the glass. "Having fun?" he asked, his eyes crinkling at the corners. "I am now," I said, a coy smile playing on my lips. The words felt reckless, but the margaritas were starting to take hold. We fell into easy conversation, talking about the ridiculousness of suburban politics, the challenges of working from home, and the best places to find good microbrews. I found myself laughing freely, more loudly than I usually would. At one point, emboldened by the alcohol and the sheer ease of his presence, I leaned in, my hand lightly touching his forearm. "You know," I said, lowering my voice conspiratorially, "the women in this neighborhood should really thank you. You've given them plenty of new gossip." Mitch grinned, a flash of white teeth in the fading sunlight. "Happy to shake things up a bit." He took a slow sip of his margarita, his gaze steady on mine. "Although I have to say, there's really only one neighbor I'm interested in getting to know better." Our eyes locked, the sounds of the party, the distant laughter, the music, they all faded away. It was just us in that small, quiet corner. My breath hitched. It felt like standing on the edge of a cliff, the wind whipping around me, exhilarating and terrifying all at once. "Mitch's youth and charm," I blurted out, the words escaping before I could filter them, "could drive any woman crazy." The moment, delicate and charged, suddenly burst. The words hung in the air, sharp and clear. My gaze flickered past Mitch's shoulder, and that's when I saw him. Ben. He stood by the grill, tongs in hand, staring directly at me. His expression was unreadable, a blank canvas that offered no clues, no anger, no pain, just a steady, unwavering look. A cold wave washed over me, instantly sobering. I pulled my hand from Mitch's arm, my smile faltering. I tried to cover, to pull back from the edge I had just stumbled over. I stammered, my voice sounding shaky even to my own ears. "You're quite the eligible bachelor. The single ladies better watch out." I forced a laugh, a brittle, hollow sound. The ease of the conversation, the reckless flirtation, shattered into a million pieces around me. An awkward silence settled between us, thick and heavy. Ben didn't say anything, didn't even look directly at me. He just gave Mitch a cool, almost imperceptible nod before turning back to the grill, flipping burgers with deliberate precision. Mitch, sensing the shift, offered a quick, "Nice to meet you, Ben," before excusing himself to grab another drink. The bubble had definitely burst. Over the next few days, our house felt different. Ben was unusually quiet, distant. He ate dinner, helped the kids with homework, and watched TV, but a wall had gone up between us. "Everything okay, honey?" I asked one evening, trying to bridge the gap. He was reading the newspaper, his face obscured. "Just work stress," he mumbled, not looking up. "Big project coming up." He always cited work stress. It was his go-to excuse. But I felt the coldness emanating from him, a silent judgment hanging in the air. He hadn't confronted me directly, but his silence was louder than any accusation. A few days later, my phone buzzed. It was Mitch. "Coffee? No harm in a friendly chat." I stared at the message, my finger hovering over the screen. "No harm," I repeated to myself. "Just coffee." I met him at the local coffee shop, a place bustling with students and remote workers. He was already there, sipping an Americano, looking impossibly relaxed. He stood as I approached, a genuine smile on his face. "Hey," he said, his eyes scanning my outfit, my hair. "You look great, Clara May, seriously." His compliments, simple and direct, made me feel seen, alive in a way Ben hadn't made me feel in years. We talked about inconsequential things at first, the new mayor, the rising gas prices. Then his voice dropped, growing softer. There's something about you, Clara May, that just gets under my skin. His gaze was intense, unwavering. A dangerous thrill shot through me, a sharp, intoxicating sensation. My resolve, which had always felt so solid, began to fray at the edges. I knew intellectually that this was wrong, that I was playing with fire. But the heat felt so good. A week passed. Ben had another one of his late meetings scheduled. Owen was at soccer practice and Lily was at a friend's house. The house was empty, quiet. My phone buzzed again. Mitch, fancy a drink while Ben's out? My heart hammered against my ribs. No, Clara May. Don't be stupid. But then another voice, softer, more insidious, whispered, just talking, just a friendly drink. I typed out a reply. Sure. Come over around 7. He arrived promptly, a bottle of red wine in his hand. The conversation from the moment he stepped through the door was charged, filled with unspoken desire. We talked, we laughed, the wine loosening my tongue, blurring the lines. He moved closer, his hand finding mine on the armrest of the sofa. His thumb stroked my skin, a feather-light touch that sent shivers down my spine. Then his eyes met mine and he leaned in. His lips were soft, warm, urgent. I responded without thinking, a surge of adrenaline mixing with a profound sense of wrongness. Guilt and exhilaration warred within me. The kiss deepened, becoming more insistent. My mind screamed at me to stop, to pull up, but my body felt heavy, almost detached, giving in to the moment. The kisses turned into more. I was swept up, caught in a current I no longer had the strength or the will to fight. I crossed a line I had never thought I would, a boundary that had always seemed insurmountable. The morning after, I woke with a profound sense of shame. The quiet of the house was oppressive, the sunlight streaming through the window too bright, too revealing. Fear clawed at my stomach. What had I done? I avoided Mitch for the next few days, dodging his calls, ignoring his texts. The memory of our transgression, however, haunted me. It was a dark, heavy weight in my chest, a secret pressing down on me. When Ben finally returned from his late meeting, he seemed oblivious, tired, but otherwise normal. He kissed my forehead, asked about the kids. But as he settled back into our routine, a chasm, wide and deep, had opened between us, one that I had created. My life became a careful performance, a tightrope walk over a chasm of my own making. Each morning I pasted on a smile, kissed Ben goodbye, and ushered the kids off to school, all while the memory of Mitch's touch lingered on my skin. The secret was a physical weight, pressing down on my chest, making every breath feel shallow. Mitch, however, seemed entirely unfazed. He'd text me during the day, a casual comment about his work, then slip in a line like, thinking about that night, we should do it again. Or you looked incredible in that dress yesterday. Ben's a lucky man. His compliments were like tiny daggers, thrilling and terrifying, always carrying the subtle allusion to our transgression. A reminder of what we shared, of what I had done. Ben started to notice. Small things at first. My phone, once left carelessly on the kitchen counter, was now always in my pocket or bag. My answers to his questions about my day became vague, lacking the usual detail. You've been out a lot lately, he commented one evening, not looking up from his dinner plate. But the question hung in the air, heavy and unspoken. Oh, just freelance work, I'd say, forcing a nonchalant tone, and running errands. You know how it is. I'd offer a weak smile, hoping it would be enough. He'd just nod, his expression unreadable, but I could feel his gaze on me, even when I wasn't looking. One Tuesday afternoon, a day Ben was usually at the office until well after dark, I heard the familiar rumble of his truck in the driveway. My blood ran cold. Mitch's car was just pulling away from our curb, his hand raised in a casual wave as he turned the corner. I had barely had time to smooth my hair and push the wine glasses to the back of the cupboard. Ben walked in, his briefcase in hand, his face tired. His eyes went from me to the street, where Mitch's car had just disappeared. Mitch was just leaving, he stated, his voice flat. Everything okay? My heart hammered. Oh yeah, just fine, I stammered, trying to sound normal. He just stopped by to borrow your wrench. Said he was having trouble with his irrigation system. The lie felt clumsy even to my own ears. Ben's eyes narrowed, just for a moment, a flicker of something I couldn't quite decipher. He nodded slowly, then headed straight to the garage, ostensibly to check on his tools. I watched him go, a knot tightening in my stomach. He didn't ask about the wrench later. He didn't need to. From that day on, Ben watched me. Not overtly, but I felt it. His gaze lingered a second too long when I picked up my phone. His silence stretched into uncomfortable spaces during dinner. Every time I left the house, every time I came back, I could feel his heavy, unspoken suspicion. The tension in our home was unbearable, a silent battle raging beneath the surface of our perfectly manicured suburban life. The constant knot of anxiety in my stomach became a permanent fixture. I was living a lie, and the cost was starting to show. Even the kids noticed. One evening, Lily climbed into my lap while I was staring blankly at the TV. "Mommy," she said, her small hand stroking my cheek, "why are you sad?" Her innocent question was a punch to the gut. The guilt, always present, intensified, sharp and unbearable. I hugged her tight, murmuring something about being tired. I knew then that I had to pull away from Mitch. This was getting out of hand. I tried to explain it to him, over text after the kids were asleep. "This needs to stop, Mitch. It's too risky. I can't." His reply came almost instantly. "Relax, Clara May. No one will ever know. We're careful." He dismissed my concerns with an ease that chilled me. But he was wrong. Someone already knew, Ben. I felt trapped, caught in the intricate web I had so foolishly woven. The thrill was gone, replaced by a suffocating fear. If you're wondering how life's costly choices unfold, stick around to the end. I had a feeling my choices were about to cost me everything. Ben, for his part, went quiet. He didn't press, didn't accuse. But the feeling of his observation was a constant pressure. I knew with a dreadful certainty that he wasn't going to let it go. He was going to investigate, discreetly, carefully. He was going to find out. The security system arrived in a nondescript brown box. Ben installed it himself, a small discreet camera in the corner of the living room, angled to capture the sofa, the front door, and a sliver of the kitchen. "Just for peace of mind," he'd said, tightening a screw. "With all the package thefts lately." I'd nodded, my stomach churning. A new layer of deception had been added to our home. He started working longer hours, or so he claimed. I found myself watching the feed from the camera on his laptop, a small window minimized in the corner of my own screen, seeing my life play out from a detached perspective. I saw my increasingly frequent, nervous interactions with Mitch. The furtive glances, the lingering touches, the way my voice softened when he called. Ben saw it all too. One evening after Ben had supposedly left for a late meeting, I messaged Mitch. "Ben's out. Fancy that drink?" My heart thumped in my chest as I hit send. I rationalized it as a final desperate act, a last grasp at the fleeting excitement before I pulled away for good. I told myself I was safe, that I had covered my tracks. The camera, small and unobtrusive, recorded everything. It captured Mitch walking in, the easy familiarity between us. It captured the way I leaned into him, the way his hands found my waist. It captured the conversation soft and low, full of a dangerous intimacy. And then it captured the kiss, passionate and undeniable. It captured the subsequent intimacy, the hurried moments on the sofa, a stark betrayal in the familiar setting of our family home. Ben watched it all later that night, alone in his home office. He sat in the dark, the blue light of the screen illuminating his face, a mask of disbelief and pain. Every frame was a dagger, every sound a fresh wound. His world, the steady, reliable world he had built, shattered into a million pieces. He waited for me to return. I walked in just after 11, my cheeks flushed, a nervous energy buzzing through me. He was sitting in the living room in the dark, the small red light of the camera, a blinking sentinel above him. The air was thick with something I couldn't yet name, but recognized as foreboding. "We need to talk," he said. His voice was flat, devoid of emotion, more chilling than any shout. My blood ran cold. "Ben, what's wrong?" I tried to sound innocent, but the words withered on my tongue. He reached for his laptop, its screen a sudden, harsh glare in the dim room. He turned it towards me. The video played, Mitch, me, our living room. My face drained of color, every excuse I had ever concocted dying in my throat. I watched myself, a stranger on the screen, betraying everything. How could you? Ben's voice finally cracked, the raw hurt pouring out, an agonizing sound. After everything? 15 years. Our kids. He stood, his frame trembling slightly. How could you do this to us? Tears streamed down my face, hot and furious. The dam broke. I fell to my knees, sobbing, confessing everything. The words tumbling out in a torrent of shame and regret. I'm so sorry, Ben. Please forgive me. I don't know why. He looked at me, his eyes empty, numb. Get out, he said, his voice barely a whisper. I can't look at you right now. Just get out. Distraught, my entire body shaking, I scrambled to pack a small bag, throwing in a few clothes, a toothbrush. I didn't know where I was going, didn't care. I just needed to escape the suffocating weight of my actions, his shattered gaze. I left the house, the door clicking shut behind me, severing me from the life I had destroyed. The neighborhood, always watchful, quickly sensed something was wrong. My car was gone, Ben's truck still in the driveway, its lights off. Hushed whispers began, carried on the evening breeze. Ben confided in Brenda, his voice hoarse, broken. Brenda, usually so boisterous, was horrified, her face pale. Within hours, the word of Clara May's affair spread like wildfire through our tight-knit community. Each whisper another nail in the coffin of my reputation. I found refuge on Sarah's spare couch in a neighboring town. The hum of the unfamiliar refrigerator, a constant reminder of my displacement. Shame pressed down on me, thick and suffocating. My phone, once a source of connection, now felt like a dangerous extension of the judgment I imagined everyone was sending my way. Back home, Ben, his voice heavy with a heartbreak I could only imagine, told Owen and Lily that Mommy needs some time away. I pictured their confused faces, their small, innocent eyes looking for answers he couldn't give without breaking their world entirely. The neighborhood, as expected, had sided almost unanimously with Ben. He was the wronged party, the faithful husband, the bedrock of their community. Mitch Cooper, however, remained strangely unfazed. He was still seen jogging, still waving to neighbors, maintaining his charming facade. His car still sat in his driveway, an irritating symbol of his immunity to the social fallout. When I braved a trip back to the house to retrieve more belongings, the judgment was palpable. Heads turned. Conversations ceased abruptly. Women I had shared coffee with for years averted their eyes or offered stiff, pitying looks. I heard snippets of whispers as I walked to my car, each word a fresh cut. Can you believe Clara May? With Mitch Cooper, of all people. She always seemed so nice. The words stung, echoing in the cavernous space where my reputation used to be. Ben had already started the divorce proceedings. His lawyer, a stern woman named Mrs. Henderson from downtown, had sent a letter. He was determined to protect his children and his home. He wasn't asking for much, just a clean break and full custody. He had strategically shared his pain with key members of the community. Brenda, Mr. Henderson from 2 houses down, even the school principal, garnering widespread sympathy and subtly painting me as the villain. I tried to reach out to old friends, women I had shared playdates and PTA meetings with for years. Many were cool, their voices strained, busy when I called. Some were direct. I just can't, Clara May. Ben is a good man. The few who did answer offered hollow reassurances, but the discomfort in their tone was undeniable. My reputation, once solid, built on years of being a good wife, a good mother, a good neighbor, was now in tatters, painted entirely by the affair. The professional repercussions were swift. My freelance graphic design work, which had provided a comfortable income for years, dried up. Emails went unanswered. Calls weren't returned. Clients, who had once praised my creativity, were now hesitant to work with someone involved in a local scandal. Who wanted a designer with such a questionable moral compass, they must have wondered. The income that was supposed to secure my independence was gone. I felt the crushing weight of judgment, the profound isolation. Every choice I had made, every fleeting moment of exhilaration, now came with an insurmountable cost. The quiet, predictable suburban life I had resented, the comfortable predictability I had yearned to escape, now felt like an unreachable paradise. I had thrown it all away for a few stolen moments, and the price was everything. Mrs. Henderson's letter had specifically mentioned my moral lapse as a key factor in Ben's petition for full custody. I was losing my children too. The divorce proceedings were brutal, a clinical dissection of my failures. Ben's lawyer, Mrs. Henderson, didn't hold back. Every detail of my infidelity was laid bare, dissected, and presented as evidence of my moral failings. The video, stark and unforgiving, was entered into the record. My past was no longer private, it was a weapon. I found myself fighting not for a share of our life, but for visitation rights. Ben, cold and unyielding, argued for supervised visits, for restrictions, for anything that would keep me from our children. Her instability, Mrs. Henderson stated, her voice sharp and clear, her blatant disregard for the sanctity of her marriage, demonstrates a clear lack of judgment. I tried to talk to Mitch. I saw him at the grocery store, cornered him by the produce aisle. "Mitch," I whispered, my voice tight, "this is what you've done to my life." He just shrugged, a casual, dismissive gesture. "Look, Clara May, it was a mutual misunderstanding. No one forced you to do anything." He offered a practiced, charming smile to the cashier, then walked away. Within weeks, he was openly dating other women, a different blonde on his arm each time I saw him at the coffee shop. His indifference was a fresh wound, a stark reminder of his true nature and my foolishness. The community, witnessing Mitch's nonchalance, felt even more protective of Ben. He was the victim, and I was the scarlet woman, cast out from the suburban paradise. My financial situation became dire. My freelance work had vanished, and every job application I submitted seemed to hit a brick wall. Who wanted to hire the neighborhood adulteress? I sold my car, a sensible sedan, to pay for legal fees, taking the bus to appointments, feeling my life unraveling, piece by agonizing piece. The freedom I had once craved was now a suffocating emptiness. Owen and Lily were confused, hurt. I saw it in their eyes during our supervised visits, in the way they kept their distance, clung to Ben when he dropped them off. "Mommy, why aren't you home anymore?" Lily asked, her voice small. "Daddy says you did something bad." I tried to explain to Owen during one strained visit at a neutral play area. "Sometimes grown-ups make mistakes, honey, big mistakes." He looked at me, his 11-year-old eyes hardened with a pain that felt too old for him. "You hurt Daddy," he said, and then turned away to kick at a stray pebble. Ben won primary custody. The judge, swayed by Mrs. Henderson's arguments and the video evidence, ruled that my moral character and instability made me unfit for unsupervised care. My visitation was heavily restricted, supervised by a court-appointed third party, a painful, constant reminder of my lost family, of what I had given up. Each visit was a performance, a desperate attempt to bridge the chasm that separated me from my children. I moved into a small, rented apartment on the other side of town, in a complex filled with single mothers and struggling students. The walls were thin, the carpets stained. It was a far cry from my once beautiful home, with its manicured lawn and spacious kitchen, now solely Ben's and the kids. Every memory there felt like a ghost, haunting the space I had abandoned. Profound regret became my constant companion. The thrill, the fleeting excitement, the sense of being seen, it had all evaporated, leaving behind only the bitter taste of my self-inflicted wounds. The quiet judgments, the cold shoulders from former neighbors, the loss of my children, my home, my reputation. This was my new normal, the undeniable price of reckoning. Months blurred into a quiet, solitary existence. I picked up odd jobs, cleaning houses, designing flyers for local businesses, anything to make ends meet. I missed Owen and Lily with an ache that never truly subsided, cherishing our brief, often strained, visits at the local community center. Sometimes I'd see Ben and the kids in town, a tight-knit unit walking hand in hand. A pang of acute, unbearable loss would hit me, sharp and sudden. Mitch Cooper, the catalyst for it all, eventually moved away. No forwarding address, just a for sale sign on his lawn one morning. His impact, a destructive wake, settled only on me. I sometimes walked past my old house, the familiar porch light glowing in the evening. It felt like seeing a ghost in my own past. I reflected on the restlessness, the desire for excitement that had consumed me. It had led me down a catastrophic path. There was no grand redemption, no dramatic turning point, just the quiet daily struggle of living with the consequences. My new reality was forged in the ashes of my old life, a quiet acceptance settling over me. I was no longer restless, but burdened with the heavy weight of my choices. The quiet hum of the Midwest, indifferent to human folly, continued. The empty porch swing on my old home's porch was a silent testament to a life lost. Some prices, once paid, cannot be refunded. The small apartment held the echoes of my solitary existence. The faint scent of stale coffee and desperation clung to the thin walls. My old life, with its comfortable house and predictable routines, felt like a dream from another person's memory. The restlessness that had once gnawed at me was gone, replaced by a quiet, heavy certainty. I had sought something more, a spark to ignite a mundane existence, and in doing so, I had burned down everything. Ben and the children continued their lives without me, a unit made stronger by my absence. Mitch Cooper, the brief flash of excitement, had simply vanished, leaving no trace but the wreckage of my choices. There was no grand lesson delivered from on high, just the stark reality of consequences. My heart had once yearned for a different rhythm, but now it beat a steady, muted drum of regret. The Midwestern plains stretched out under an indifferent sky, vast and unchanging, much like the path I had chosen. I had carved my own way, and this was where it led.